lineup. So we have Alexandria Taylor, who is here tonight to introduce herself, and I know nothing about her, so I'm really excited to hear her speak tonight. So thank you for the welcome for her. Here you go.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Alexandria Taylor, and like she said, I'm running for U.S. Senate here in Michigan. So a little bit of background information. I am an attorney. I've been practicing law for almost 13 years, and I'm the managing attorney of Taylor Law Firm, which is my own law firm, and it's located downtown Detroit. I am a litigator, so it's just a fancy word for a trial attorney. I primarily do criminal defense, family law, and complex civil litigation. I am also an adjunct professor at University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. And in my spare time, I run for U.S. Senate. I have a very unique testimony. So I grew up Democrat, which is not unusual for a lot of communities of color. And it wasn't necessarily that I grew up in a liberal household. My stepdad was a pastor. Mom was a first lady, very traditional gender roles, which you can't even say that nowadays. I did not necessarily get caught up in the liberal movement until I went to college at Michigan State. Yeah. And so the fight that I have within me, I had then, but I was fighting for the wrong things. And so in 2018, when I ran for office for the first time, I ran as a Democrat. And after the primary, I lost, and I got more involved in the party. And it was during that time that was really, God opened my eyes, and I had what I call a road to Damascus journey, where he just showed me that my walk and my talk were not in alignment. And the biggest thing that my eyes were open to is how the Democrats have masterfully woven race within their platform. And so I began to see, and I had to even repent myself, how I had elevated race above righteousness. And so at that point, I left the Democratic Party, and I started to become more vocal about these issues, because it's a lot of people like myself, and like Bernadette was saying, a lot, particularly black people, who really are conservative, poll conservative, but vote Democrat. And so we really have to ask ourselves, why are they voting Democrat? And that's the part where I say that the Democrats have put race in their platform, and they run on identity politics, and they have created this perception that Republicans are racist or nationalists. And so that is why you have so many in the black community who traditionally vote Democrat, but when you look at these communities, they are desecrated by poverty. You know, we have generational curses of just like victimhood and poverty. And if you really think about it and know the history, the Democrats really destroyed the black family. Yep. And these policies started in the 60s with Lyndon B. Johnson, and those policies saying, okay, you cannot get aid unless the man is out of the house. And so you wouldn't have situations like what Bernadette went through, which I believe in. I was supporting a federal level help for families, but they created these policies that destroyed the family. And if you look at every policy by the Democratic Party, even think about how they took prayer out of school, 63, 73 legalized abortion, and look at how we've come since then. And so I believe it's time to tell the truth and shame the devil. We have to be honest about these things, because like Bernadette said, we really are in a spiritual battle. This is a battle of good and evil, and I respect religious freedom, but at the end of the day, this is a battle of good and evil. And we look at these policies, they are anti-God policies, because what we have now is educational policies that are more focused on transgender ideology than reading, writing, and arithmetic. Look at the numbers. We're in the bottom educationally. So we're not educating our children. They don't know anything. We don't have books anymore in schools, but yet they're being sent home books that say, maybe you're born in the wrong body. And I know this for a fact because my campaign office manager, her 8-year-old daughter, who attends school in Farmington Hills, brought home the book. And so this is what we're up against. But we have an epidemic of weak leadership. Yes. Weak, jellyback leadership who refuse to take a stand for anything. Leaders who are bought, sold, and compromised on both sides. I'm just going to be honest. And so we have to clean house. I was in Mar-a-Lago in December, and I heard President Trump say this, and I firmly believe this. This is the most important election of our lifetime. We are fighting for the soul of our nation. The things that we are dealing with, I would have never thought in 43 years this is what we would be arguing over. I have 3 children. Why am I arguing over boys going in the boys' bathroom and girls going in the girls' bathroom? But here we are. And so we have to be serious and intentional about the leaders that we are electing in this season. And so I am very passionate about election integrity, which it appears you all are too. And I've sued Wayne County for their illegal practices, because I'm not sure how many of you follow what is going on in Detroit, but it is egregious, to say the least. And I worked as an attorney for Michigan election integrity for the 22 election at Cobo, aka TCF, aka Huntington. Right. And the things that I saw, I was blown away. So these Dominion machines are like in the middle of the room. Has anybody worked at Cobo for election day? Okay, so it's a platform where you have Dominion, and it's guarded by security and Detroit police. And you have all these cords, but yet they're saying there's no internet access, but all these cords and all this is going on. They have these adjudication machines that when we sued Wayne County, I have testimony in the transcript of their representative saying that this program can add or remove a mark from a ballot. Yes. And the exact word that their representative used is this program can manipulate the ballot. So this is what we're up against. And the only way that we can win in November is 2 things. And I heard President Trump say this exact same thing. 1, we have to flip moderate Democrats to vote red. And 2, independents. Because we know they're going to cheat. And until we're in, we can't make a difference. Like, I support paper ballots, but until we actually win, we cannot make those changes. And so in order to flip this seat, we have to position the strongest candidate who can go up against the Democratic establishment. And so who is the Democratic establishment for this seat? Alyssa Slotkin. So she is a congresswoman in Ingham County. That's who they are positioning to take this seat. And they are trying to portray her as a moderate Democrat, but a 30-second search of her voting record reveals that she votes with Biden. And so this is the deception that we have going on in this election. And it's very rare to have an open Senate seat. I'm not sure how many of you know the history behind this seat, but Debbie Stabenow in 2000 unseated an incumbent, the Republican who was in this seat, Spencer Abraham, who was also an attorney, unseated him after 1 term. I don't know of anybody in here who's ever ran for office other than the state rep, but it's very challenging to unseat an incumbent. But that just shows how diligent they were. We have to go twice as hard. And just like someone said, David and Goliath, this is a David and Goliath battle. And we have 1 shot to put up the right person who can defeat Alyssa Slotkin in the general, and I am that person. And I believe that it's very intentional that God raised me up during this time, because I'm going to tell you this, I'm very successful in my law career. I was on a completely different path running for judge, until the Lord revealed to me that this was a position that He would have me run for. I never thought about running for Senate, never talked about running for Senate, was never on this path, but now I see why, because we have to raise up different kind of candidates with a message that will resonate with them, because we've been losing these races, and we need to make real connections to be able to flip this seat red in November. Everything is on the line. I will support the Second Amendment, because how many of you know, especially at a local level here in Michigan, like we have one of the most extreme red flag laws. I will support the sovereignty of we the people. So when you talk about the solar and the wind panels, that's a violation of the 10th Amendment, but it just shows the increasing police power in the state and how they're trying to take the power away from we the people. I support dismantling the Department of Education. I support securing our border. So even from a different perspective, as a criminal defense attorney, you know what I see? Fentanyl pouring into our communities. Children overdosing. When I say children, I mean middle schoolers, high schoolers overdosing. We need to secure the border. This is not rocket science here. I will do just that and support President Trump, because how many of you know, and I believe it is President Trump who God has ordained to be the president in this next season, his hands will be tied if we don't have the Senate.
That's right.
And so we have to give him the Senate to be able to get these policies across. We have to secure our advantage in the House, but we have to have the Senate. And so that's why we've been going around and pressing like everything depends on this election. And I'll say this, I can share in Bernadette's testimony because I've been attacked from this side, from Republicans saying, well, we don't trust her. She was a Democrat. But I'll tell you this, since day one of announcing this race, I've shared that testimony. Why? Because it's a testimony that will resonate with a lot of people. And we need to reach communities that traditionally, as Republicans, we have not been able to reach. And so that is going to be critical for this election. And I'm going to tell you this, Democrats know it. You know why? Because ever since I announced this race, they grieved my law license twice for election law cases. When I sued Wayne County, they grieved my law license for that. They didn't wait until the case was over. They waited until I announced this race to grieve me. I represented Mike Lindell in Kent County over a year ago. They didn't grieve me when the case was over. Oh, they waited until I announced my run. I am the Democrats' worst nightmare because they know I will speak truth to power about their lives, particularly in urban communities, and getting people to see. You don't even agree with these policies. I don't care what the person looks like coming to your door. It's a lie from the pit of hell. Vote red in 24. That's the message, and we need to get that message out to these communities. And so I'm asking for your support. And as many of you know, it takes 15,000 signatures to get on the ballot. And so I have petitions here with my chief of staff, and I'm asking that you sign my petition, but that you also take some with you to help in this effort, because faith without works is dead. We're believers, but it's time for action. We've been talking for far too long. It's time to put some action behind what we're saying. And so if you are willing, please speak with us afterwards. And donations, hosting, anything that you could do would be greatly appreciated. And before I go, I want to impress upon you, when the state rep Fox spoke, don't forget there are 2 state house seats, the 13th and the 25th district. We need to take one of those to stop this evil and wicked agenda. So I understand we're in a completely different district, but guess what you can do? You can donate, you can phone bank, you can go drive down there and help knock doors, because again, it's time out for talking. If we don't take at least one of those seats,
That's right.
those things that he's been talking about, those evil, wicked things that they're planning that are in the pipeline, they will push them through. And so it's not just, it's at every level we have to get more active from top to bottom,
Yes.
doing and helping if we are truly going to take back our country this year. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
We have time for Q&A, so if anybody has any questions for Alexandria as far as like what her stances are and things, I think we, here you go.
This isn't about a stance, but make
Whatever.
people aware that if they've already signed somebody's petition, they can't sign twice.
Right.
Yeah, so if you've already signed someone's petition for U.S. Senate, you can only sign one. Yes, was somebody else asking that? Yes, you can only sign one petition.
Yes.
If elected, would you support the effort for term limits on Congress?
Yes, I do. I signed it.
You did?
I did. And they posted me on their Facebook page.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I knew that was coming.
Yes, I signed it when we did the Senate debate at the church in Grand Rapids. I'm not sure if anybody, and then they put it on their page. Yes.
How'd you do on that Senate debate? I didn't watch it, so I just wondered how you felt. Did you do good?
It went really well. I mean, the thing is, it's a crowded field, but that's to be expected because it's an open seat. And so we can't be deterred by that. We just have to get behind and put our resources behind the strongest person.
I don't remember hearing anything. What do you feel about abortion? And have you done anything, like, to help stop abortion?
So pro-life, no exceptions, and I support the AAA Pregnancy Center and those efforts and just trying to find ways to reach a different demographic. So through the pregnancy centers, we kind of talked about how do you reach this younger demographic, but I'm a proponent of working with churches because I think we need to bring back things like the purity promise. And so when I was young, I was in a church youth group, and it's like we have to counter the message of the world, which is sex, sex, sex. And so there's no counter message. And so this is all our young people, and I have 2 teenagers, 1 teenage daughter. This is all they're being bombarded with. So that is something that I'm very passionate about, is a purity promise and promoting abstinence.
Yes, I'm just curious, in Detroit, do you, when you talk to the population in Detroit, it's obviously a different voting demographic
Yes.
than a lot of the, the red rural counties.
Yes.
So are they starting to see some of the policies that are being put in place by Democrats? Are they starting to see that it's not helping them? Do you think that they're gonna start switching their votes? I know that, who was it? Was it you that said 35%? Or was it Bernadette? I think it was Bernadette that said 35%. We're starting to.
Yeah, so I think we have the perfect opportunity now because this is a lot different than it was in 2020. And so what I mean is economically, people are hurting. And I say 2 things, gas and groceries. And so we have an opportunity now to have their ear because you have a lot of people that are just struggling. And that is something that I see, just especially in the city, is that people are really, really struggling. And so because of this unique opportunity, we just have to go into these communities. And that's what I, say, even to all Republican candidates top down, but especially statewide and congressional, we have to be willing to go into these communities because a lot of them have never talked to any Republicans, like outside of, I know Christina Caramo did a lot of campaigning in Detroit when she ran for Secretary of State. I know we worked on Tudor Dixon's campaign. That was one big thing. It's like I was very vocal, like, let's go in Detroit, let's go in Detroit. And there was, a little bit of apprehension. And so I do think that this is the perfect time to do it because, the thing is gas and groceries is not a red or blue issue. Everybody's hurting with gas and groceries. And so because of that, we have that opening, and it's just about messaging. And so that's a big thing too. I'm really big on grassroots campaigning because that's how I learned to campaign, but it's just about messaging. And so I'll just give you an example. When Prop 3 was up, when I flipped people on Prop 3, I didn't go for the gusto of getting them to flip from pro-choice to pro-life. I would just focus on one narrow issue, like, are you aware, because I read the full text of it, and it's, are you aware that it allows full term? And then I'll have people look at me like I was crazy, like, what? Like, no. I would never support that. So that's what I mean. It's like our messaging has to be different in how we're approaching search. So it could be something as simple as, the transgender ideology, because I know that's really big in the city, in the inner city. They are vehemently opposed to that. And so going on these issues and getting them to open their eyes on just a couple issues instead of going for everything to get them to flip and vote red in the general. Any other questions?
Defund Planned Parenthood?
You said what?
Defund Planned Parenthood?
Absolutely. And so that's the other thing with the lady who asked in the back when I was talking about the pregnancy center, because I was telling her when I went to Michigan State, I was telling the AAA Pregnancy Center representatives, when I went to Michigan State, how they pitch Planned Parenthood to us as college students is that you get free pap smear. And then that's how they get in, and then it's just the indoctrination that comes behind it. And so we have to support and donate and fund the pregnancy centers to do that same thing. Because again, they're targeting college kids. That's the group that they're targeting. And so we have to support the pregnancy centers and making sure we're donating so that they can counter that message. But yeah, absolutely support defunding Planned Parenthood. Yes.
Is there, cutting off the colleges, is their money coming in? Do I understand they have to get at least a minimum of $1 a year, right? So what can we do, because that's where our socialist, DEI, critical race theory stuff is coming from and feeding the kids. I mean, they grow up hearing it.
Right.
So it's so easy for them to fall into that. So is there any way to say, hey, use your own endowment money before you start taking from the taxpayers?
Absolutely, and so that's one of the things in particular when you think about the U.S. Senate is that they control the purse strings. And so a lot of this, is not, these aren't difficult decisions. Cut the money off.
Yeah.
And so we are funding and allowing these things to happen. And that's why I say the same thing, even if you think about the Department of Education, because now our schools are a funnel for indoctrination of CRT, like you said, DEI. They're teaching kids to hate their country. That's in essence what's going on. And they're not concerned with educating. And this is the other thing too that I just thought about. I am vehemently opposed to the bill to require homeschoolers to register, because what's happened, and even though it's not a federal issue, it's a state issue, but I support coming against that, because this is what they're realizing. Parents are pulling their children out at a rapid pace, and they realize that. So now they're saying, okay, we need to control homeschoolers. We have to oppose these things, because again, they're not concerned about educating, because education, we're at the bottom. Test scores, look at all this, we're at the bottom. It's just another mechanism to be able to control homeschool and control the curriculum so that they can force homeschooling parents to teach their children that transgender ideology, CRT, and all of that other nonsense. And so we have to be vocal about that. But again, that's the importance of these two House races, the 13th and the 25th. So yes, you don't live in those districts. My chief of staff is in Warren, but you can donate, phone bank, drive down, because again, this is all in the pipeline. You heard State Rep Fox say this. This is all in the pipeline. So unless we win one of those seats, trust and believe they're putting all of this through. And then it's going to take a while to undo that damage. And so let's be vigilant in our efforts to make sure that we take one. It'd be great to get both, but at least one of those House seats this year. The special election is in April for that.
Anybody else?
All right, thank you so much.